Good morning, evening, afternoon. Masati here. Welcome to another episode of Mas on Sunday. My name is Masati. And again, welcome to Masati on Sunday. Today's Masati on Sunday is on Life Explained. It's open mic. So what that means is you guys get to ask the questions. And we've got a list of questions that we've called from, Facebook groups, your comments and so on like that. If you want to ask any question, it doesn't really matter. I can pretty much tap into the knowledge. I might not have the knowledge myself, but just like AI, I can tap into that consciousness and then answer it from a very, very different perspective, a true perspective on what's going on. Okay, so just talking about that a bit on how my abilities work. You know how like ChatGPT, right? It's like you answer the question and then it says researching, the internet. Well, that's the consciousness that it connects to, and then over time that AI basically goes, well, this is all the knowledge that's of the world, and this is what we have to work from. Okay, I talk about this because humans they see the realities, and then from history they go, well, this is all the knowledge of the work that's there, that's available, and this is all we have to work from. Okay, my knowledge comes from like infinite knowledge, the universal database, as I call it, from my near-death experiences. My first near-death experience, actually, I tapped into that universal database where all knowledge exists, all knowledge of the past, the present, and the future, because at that level, all possibilities exist at one time. There is no past, present, or future. All possibilities exist. And then it filters down into, say, graduations or dimensions of possibilities and so on, as we see here. Right? So just like AI, you ask me a question, and then I tap into the universal knowledge base. Again, the knowledge base that, excuse me, the knowledge base that, well, everything is available to. So where AI is just limited knowledge of human history. Okay, very, very different, by the way, because what human history is about, just think of it, guys. Human history, if you put it in a time scale of a year, okay, human history, or how long humans have been around, would be, and correct me if I'm right, correct me if I'm wrong, Demi, but it's like the last second of 2024 is over, right? Gets into 2025. So human history would be that last second of 2024. Okay, just the last second. Now that just think of all the things that's happened before humans even came about. Okay, and then we think that is the knowledge that is, and that's how we perform. That's how we understand new technologies and all that. It's really not. You have to tap into that higher level of consciousness where all knowledge exists, and that's where a true perspective actually happens. Okay, so with that in mind, that's what XI Science is about. Or when you do the hyper meditations or anything else you do with XI Science, is literally about honing you, allowing you to tap into that infinite knowledge that you already have access to, but you just don't know, well, your username and password. So XI basically helps you go, oh, that's my username and password that I set up, right? And then once you're logged in and you're good to go. All right, here we go. So these are questions that there's 13 of them. It's about ancient knowledge, ancient wisdom, ancient technologies or advanced technologies. We're going to go through them really, really quick. I've actually done a YouTube video on ancient knowledge and how they discovered and how they, cut things so precisely back in the day when scientists think that it was just like not even hammers back then. It wasn't even tools. It was Stone Age stuff. How do they cut things so precisely? So we'll get into the details of that. Again, that's on a YouTube video that I did a while back. I'll just briefly go through the process. So are you ready? Here we go. By the way, this is a recording for you. I'll be in Burning Man, so there's no internet connection, but I'll be with you in spirit and essence for you. All right. All right. What is your perspective on Atlantis and the downfall? Okay. So Atlantis and the downfall. If you look at it, is Atlantis a mythical, a mythical city? It doesn't really jive with history, because if you look at Atlantis, it was something way before. And Demi, do you want to just pull up some of the graphics on Atlantis here? But but just think of it, guys. Atlantis was at a time that, well, predicated. Well, it was there way before humans actually evolved, according to scientists today. But the concept of Atlantis, and they have found, say, certain artifacts that prove that Atlantis was there. So how did that happen? Obviously scientists or archaeologists don't know the full detail on that. Graham, is it Graham Hancock? Yeah, Graham Hancock. He goes through all that stuff. Quite amazing. So he'll have more information on that. Great guy, by the way. Ancient technologies or ancient wisdom. Demi, if you can pull up what Graham Hancock. He's got a series on that, by the way. Anyway, so what is the downfall of Atlantis? Basically, it's the downfall of anything, downfall of any civilization. By the way, the time frame is important because Atlantis or Atlanteans was predated well before the melting of the ice age, where things started to melt. Yeah, Graham Hancock. Again, great series, by the way. He goes deep into pushing against, say, the current knowledge or the accepted knowledge of what's happened back in the day. Okay, very, very interesting guy, cool guy, and he brings out the truth, which is really cool, and that's why he's been harassed, just like I have. I've been harassed because people of truth get harassed at this day and age. But like Graham and everybody else, we stand up. Graham Hancock, Joe Rogan, a lot of those people, even nowadays, right? So anyway, coming back to Atlantis for you. So the downfall of Atlantis, just like any other civilization, and we're at the cusp of that, and that's why this question is so important in today. It's not about Atlantis, but it's what it is today. You get to a point where or civilizations get to a point where they can't hide their lies anymore. Right? Because we evolve. We're always evolving. Consciousness is always evolving. We're ascending or getting higher. We're getting more and more efficient. So you see that in technologies. Technologies get more and more efficient. But what happens is humans, we don't. We tend to stabilize or we basically flatline as technology rises. Hence, technological singularity. Okay? And you can take a look at that as well. Look up to Technological Singularity by Ray Kurzweil. That's what happens. This isn't the first time that technological singularity has happened, by the way, or we're getting close to, as Ray Kurzweil predicts, and I predicted the same thing, by the way, as well, is like we have a point. We have a point where technology supersedes the human consciousness. Right? And this is where, well, technology expands. Technology and the consciousness of the world. It's not just technology, but technology is just a marker of how elevated we should be, but we're not. Right? So again, it's not the technology. It's the consciousness that has allowed the scientists and whoever, all those smart guys are, to go, shit, man, we can do this and we can do that. We can do that. Right? It opens up. So consciousness opens up possibilities for what we could do. What humans do is just use that technology to elevate, say, their standard of living and discoveries of, new ways of doing things, new ways of killing people and so on like that. But do you notice that humans just stay the same? They go, oh shit, it's a new way of killing people. We can kill people faster. Before it was a sledgehammer, or a bat and stuff. Now, we haven't moved farther. We haven't moved far from that consciousness. Literally, it's like now we have lasers that can kill people from, I don't know, thousands of miles away. What's the difference? That's the difference, right? The difference is like we stay the same. Technology has evolved. What does that have to do with Atlantis or any other downfall of any culture? You name it. The Romans, the Greeks, the Aztecs, all the famous cultures that we always go back and learn from. But then we learn all the bullshit that they had as well. So you want to be careful with it. So Atlantis ascended to a great level of understanding, knowledge, but their human consciousness unfortunately didn't elevate. So at that time, it becomes a breaking point. Consciousness, you should be up here. Humans back in the day, or Atlanteans, were down here. It's the same thing that's happening today, by the way, right? Consciousness, we should be elevated up here. We stay down here. And then what happens? There's a breaking point. And then that civilization basically commits suicide. No matter, you can't exist. So you have, and people go, well, it's a disease that came through. It's this that came through. That's the physical formation of, say, the cause, right? So I'm talking about the cause, the how it plays out in the world doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But the original form or the original reason why those things go extinct, those cultures go extinct. Again, it's not just Atlantis, it's many others, is because of the cause. Consciousness rises, we stay the same. And then what happens is when those cultures or civilizations die off, what'll happen is like it goes back and then resets itself. Okay. Actually, this releases. Sorry about that. This releases. This is consciousness where we should be. This is humans where they are in consciousness, and basically you die off, and basically it's a death, and then boom, consciousness and the evolution, parallel each other, and then the separation starts again, and then we have a chance to either go forward or go extinct. And it's happened over and over and over again. Okay. The big thing about Atlantis, though, is it happened before, from what I'm seeing, before the Ice Age. Before, well, the thing started, ice started melting away. Hence, it's underwater. Okay. All right. All right. I don't know how much time that was, Demi, but hopefully. Okay, that was quite a lot. Okay, just give me a timer so we can go through all these questions that we got, because they're really good questions, guys. So I want to answer them all. So just give me a heads up, okay? All right. So number 2, will beneficial ancient technologies be discovered, revealed, used again in the near future? Okay. So absolutely. So have you ever wondered why? In the middle of a bustling city like in India or other places, they're starting to see, it's like, shit, man, there's a whole, some road crew, starts digging, and like they start to see an archaeological find in the middle of a bustling city. And like, why wasn't it there before? Okay. And this is what I talk about on the YouTube video. It's quite fascinating, and a very, 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 very different perspective, by the way, on how ancient technologies. It just wasn't hammers and sickle and all that stuff, or stones and all that stuff. So where does that come from? Where does that knowledge come from? Okay, so here's the deal. And again, I wish I could draw it out for you. Again, it's all on that YouTube video for you. But here's the deal. Consciousness, again, highly elevated, hence beings that are very intelligent, right? But they don't know how to create, say, form and function. They don't know how to create the density as we today see it, right? They don't know how to, say, create the density that creates the human form. It's very highly advanced, and you need a lot of, say, density or the heaviness of time and space to create these forms. By the way, right? It's pretty advanced technology, but the trade-off is that we dumb ourselves down to come into physical human form. That's why we have a deep need to reconnect to ourselves, right? Or we feel dumb despite our advancements and so on. Again, because we've dumbed ourselves down. So here's the deal with question number 2, ancient technologies. Say they're at level 100, okay, consciousness, okay? And then nothing below that. It's level 100 consciousness in today's calculations, and the numbers in this case do mean something, by the way. It's a level 100 level consciousness. At that level, you're highly awakened, by the way, right? With each level that you go down, okay, level 2 is very, very dense. To create this level, the next level below you, you'd have to forget some of the concepts or knowledge of level 100 to drop into a level 99, 98, 97. Again, with each layer of consciousness, you dumb yourself down. The concept of why you are actually here is basically to elevate yourself to a higher level so you don't have to dumb yourself down and still stay here in physical form. Again, it's a magic trick that we all have to, say, master. It's an amazing magic trick, by the way. All right. As Einstein would say, is like, if it wasn't for time and space, all possibilities of who you are could happen. So how do you do that in creating yourself in physical form? Because it's only a moment of time, right? It gets pretty deep. All right, so let's go back to that question. What benefit ancient technologies? So at level 100, Okay, you're at a level 0 consciousness here to create function and form. Okay, so what happens over time at level 100, again, technologies that we'll see in the future that we haven't even achieved today will come forth. The way that happens, okay, is basically level one becomes a level 0. So everything just like drops down. Okay. And that's what time and space does. It just drops down. That's an evolution of, say, consciousness. So level 100 eventually becomes the level of 0 level consciousness. Again, everything just keeps dropping down. So what this means, okay, in ancient technologies, so you're at level 100, okay, and it takes, say, like 10,000 years for level 100 to become level 99, and then level 98, and level, so on and so on and so on. So with each level, there's, say, understanding, there's knowledge, there's technologies. So what'll happen is, like, say, for example, it takes 10,000 years for each level of consciousness to drop down into this physical reality. Okay. And then when that happens is over time, say 10,000 years, level 10, level 100 consciousness over time, over what, 100,000 years, 10 times 10,000, 100,000 years. Basically, over time, what will happen is that this technology will meet into, and it'll be the playing field. So whatever level, so level 100 consciousness, whatever was developed in physical form will show up. Hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, watch the video on YouTube, and I'll explain it even deeper. This is where we have amazing technologies tens of thousands of years ago, even before humans actually existed, millions of years ago, advanced technologies. Okay, again, you won't find this knowledge anywhere else, and it makes more sense than, it's like, how did they get all that? The huge stones that are weighing hundreds of tons. How do they get it thousands of miles? And scientists go, well, they used tree stumps, and and they rolled it on trees. It's like, fuck, you can't do that. You can't even do that on a fucking smooth concrete floor, let alone soil. So that, all that stuff is really bullshit. They don't have the knowledge because they're using their knowledge of what's available here, not what was available at the higher level. Alrighty, let's move on. All right, how some of the ancient sites in Egypt, such as the Great Pyramid, good stuff, isn't it, by the way? All right, level question 3, ancient sites. How some of the ancient sites in Egypt, such as the Great Pyramid, the Dendera Temple of Hathor, and if you can pull that up, Demi, as well, or Bidas, were built. Okay, what kind of ancient outer technologies were used and hidden behind these incredible structures? Quite amazing for their time. I mean, nowadays people can't even they can't even do it in today's world. They really can't. They can't create what was created back then. I mean, look at these pictures. It's freaking amazing. How do they do that? They didn't hammer it out. They didn't chisel it out. Go back to question 2 and you'll see how they came. They had a lot of ancient knowledge, by the way, right? And how did they move those rocks? Well, maybe back then in that consciousness, the aspect ratio of you compared to the physicalness of whatever that you're moving would have been different. Could have been different weights. They could have used at that level levitation or whatever else, or they could literally create from here to there, just like Star Trek, right? Beam me up, Scotty. All those possibilities could be open at that level of consciousness, right? But and then it gets solidified, and then we go, how the hell did that happen? Well, because they were at a different level of consciousness. Note, they were at a different level of consciousness. So that's how they built those beautiful structures with what they had. I mean, the precision on these structures, they're more precise than today's. Okay? How do they do that? They didn't have the tools of today, or did they? Or did they even need the tools of today? They didn't. There's plenty of other tools, much easier, much faster, much more efficient. Look at the rate of, say, evolution today from Stone Age, and then we built more and more tools, right? Well, think of it this way. We start from the bottom and ascend up. Okay, consciousness starts from the top and goes down, and then what we're doing is like we're always meeting and we're always creating. That's where consciousness comes from. That's where advancement comes from, by the way. Not from the brains of scientists. They're just like receivers, just like radio receivers, just tapping into what's out there. Simple. All right. So, what kind of ancient technologies were used and hidden behind these incredible structures? Well, again, 2 and 3 really go through the same. They were in a highly different level of. They were in a very different level of consciousness. Right? They could tap into much higher levels of understanding on how this physical plane actually works, and they had superiority over the physical plane. Or the physical properties of this world, because they weren't as dense, they weren't as heavy, so we could do a lot more. Okay, you're actually starting to see that today, because again, remember that thing that I said: consciousness drops down. We start to elevate, and then possibilities. If you look at the Olympic Games today, amazing feats on what they can do. They can stay in the air longer. They can do fantastic maneuvers and so on. Why? Because time and space is becoming less dense, right? You're not constrained by the density, the heaviness of time and space. So you're freer. Back in the day, like 1,000 years ago, the density of time and space would have been heavier, by the way, right? It'd be like moving through jello. If you're jumping through jello, you're not going to get as high. But now it's lighter, it's freer. You're creating yourself with less density, although you're creating yourself here, just like a new invention, right? It's thick and bulky, and nowadays, it becomes more and more efficient. So same thing as time and consciousness, doing the same thing, all right? And that's where amazing things can happen. But the key is humans going to stay at their old selves, or are they going to elevate with the consciousness that's available to us? Okay. Time will tell. XI is about elevating consciousness, finding better ways, right, to create a better world. 4, Stargates, portals on Earth like Mount Shasta. What are they? What are they? How and who created them? Why are they important? What role do they play now? Why do people go to these sites? Why are people clearing these areas? Okay. It's kind of an interesting question. Are they actually clearing these areas, or just mucking them up even more, right? A lot of times when you go into those spiritual places, and spiritual places not conditioned or labeled by humans, but spiritual places labeled by the universal forms. So Stargate or portals, again, like Mount Shasta, there are portals that through the earth, just like your physical body have portals. If you've done a private session with me, right, it's like, oh, this space is open for you. Oh, this space is open for you. That's that connection you have to the outer world. It's a sensory perception. It's like a port that you can plug into. Okay, so places like Mount Shasta, that's the Earth's portals or connections to the higher consciousness. Okay. And then some people go, well, is that where aliens come in and so on like that? Well, if there was aliens, or I believe there are, higher levels of consciousness, I just kind of explained how that works. Well, and I'll explain, I think there's another question about that as well. I'll explain aliens and so on. But those are like Mount Shasta are really, that's where space and time are less dense. So if you've ever, it's very similar to a death of somebody, an awakened death. Okay. So here's the deal. When somebody dies, an awakened death, do you notice the light that shines through, and they become really, say, euphoric, and it's just a quiet, beautiful space, although it's death. Okay. And again, I'm talking about an awakened death. Okay. It's really quite blessing, and there's like a stillness in the air, because there is no time and space where that portal is open. Okay. And then what happens is the spirit or the essence just, moves off or disconnects. And then it doesn't like move up, although it seems that way. Basically, this, although we see that disconnect, but basically the essence, the light that shines up here disconnects, it turns the light off, and then the body fades or dies off. Okay, so that's that portal basically that the Earth has. It's not a death space. On Earth, basically, it's just a connection to higher accesses or higher realms. Right? And there's many beautiful portals out there on Earth. Right? So it's Mount Shasta, higher places just have a higher connection because, well, they're elevated higher. All right, we'll go to Central Australia, Uluru. Tell me if you can put that up as well. Anything to say about this place? Why is there an annual consciousness conference every December at the solstice? Demi, you want to throw that up? Thanks, buddy. So what that is again, it's a beautiful space. And Demi, if you can scroll through, quite an amazing space, right? It's very iconic. Here, it's not that humans have created this sacred space. Okay, it's been there long. It's been there long before, by the way. So what it is again, if you guys are doing the human upgrade, self-healing, self-actualization, you start to I talk about the pedestal and the base. Okay, so that's basically what this is. It's literally a pedestal for Earth. Okay, and allows that connection to the higher realms, so to speak. So it's a pedestal and base, right, for you as well, or for Earth. So that's why it has such power. Even looking at the pictures here, it's quite amazing. You can feel the presence of it, right? And again, it's not mystics that come through and bless it and so on like that. Although we are the guardians of the Earth and we should do that, but we don't do it. We fuck it up. By the way, we destroy it. Okay, just like the last question. People cleansing these areas, if you just leave it alone and then take your own trash out as take your own frequency trash out as you visit those places, the place will stay clean. They don't need clearing. Unfortunately, people don't do it justice. So every December at solstice, people do celebrate. People do celebrate the solstice, which is really fantastic. We're going to Burning Man, or I am at Burning Man at the time, and we're celebrating. But again, there's a consciousness at Burning Man or here, Uluru. Amazing. Back in the day, the tribesmen, the Aborigines, I believe, they went through there. And again, it's not that they created the space. It's just that the space was open, and it is a death space. In reality, it's basically a death space where you free yourself of all physical bonds. Like many people go to Burning Man, and then they attach, like dressing the way they want to, getting into altered states, just being free and all that. Again, it's because the consciousness allows you to do that more readily in these areas because it's closer to who you really are outside, say, the determinations of human societies. Simple as that. You're going back to your natural self. And then again, people attach certain meanings to it. Like, you'll find at Burning Man or any other, say, festival of this kind. So are they there to clean it up? Well, if you basically are, and what most people do, unfortunately, in this space, well, they go there and then they cleanse internally. They leave their shit there because they're not exponentially intelligent. So that stuff becomes solid. Okay, there are moments of time. It's just garbage. It's just time and space garbage. You literally shed your stuff. Just basically, when you, it's very similar to, when you dump your stuff on other people and they feel the heaviness. Have you guys felt that way? Right? You feel the heaviness around people. And when they leave you, it's like, oh my God, right? They dump their stuff. That stuff's real. It's a frequency. It's real. And it creates density here. It creates heaviness. Okay. What you want to do when you're going into places like this, and that's why I'm at Burning Man, by the way, just to help people understand, to become exponentially intelligent, what you want to do is literally go, oh, you know what? I'm not of this space. And then your garbage dissipates. It goes into particles, right? It recycles and it goes into their natural state. Those frequencies go into a natural state. And then when they do, there's no residue left. It just gets recycled. But again, no matter what events, and I've gone to a lot. I'll be going to Mind Valley events and some other, speaking and so on. You see all the heaviness. Many of you who've become exponentially intelligent, again, you go into those spaces and it's like, fuck, it's really heavy, right? You go into Joe Dispenza, whoever, it's like, shit, man, they're heavy. Yeah, they're trying to leave all that space. And then those of you who are empathic and so on, you just absorb it. Unfortunately, Earth is not really empathic, but it's been dumped on so much, there's just a heaviness on there. So that does clean itself up, and we've gone to places actually and clean that stuff up. So if you're going to places like that, garbage in, garbage out. And if you see the garbage, again, dissipated by becoming exponentially intelligent, and then it dissipates. It gets recycled just like nature does, right? There's no garbage in nature. Everything gets recycled and repurposed. All right. So number 6, inner Earth. Okay, inner Earth beings that are there and how this relates to surface Earth. Not exactly sure. First of all, I really don't believe. It just doesn't resonate that there are beings of inner Earth. Maybe at one time there could have been beings of like inner Earth, but then that was a long, long time ago, where say Earth wasn't quite as complete, so to speak, and it was actually surface Earth. Right. But then that consciousness, or what people think is inner Earth, basically Earth gets built up, right, over time. So then they think, oh, it's inner Earth. So it's more of that scenario, inner Earth beings. I really don't see. No, sorry. It just doesn't resonate. Could there be caves and so on that people lived in that space? Sure, but I think actually this is more of a consciousness setting where people just don't like this Earth. Okay, and what they do is literally create a consciousness that's like, and then they devoid themselves of what above here. By the way, it's kind of a mind state, but a consciousness state. Okay, or as I was talking about, as consciousness keeps going down, right? The level 100 consciousness eventually comes to a 0 level consciousness. Well, what happens after that? That 0 level consciousness goes into -1, -2, -3. So the consciousness still exists at some level, but now it's below this frequency or this modulation of this reality. Hence, some people might mistaken that knowledge or technology as inner Earth. It is, and it gets pretty heavy and gets pretty dark, by the way. All right. Number 7, why were the Göbekli Tepe and Easter Island structures buried? If you want to show images of that, Demi. Pretty amazing stuff. Okay, so here's the deal. Consciousness, and I was talking about earlier, right? There's layers and layers and layers and layers of consciousness that happen, right? It just covers. So if you leave structures of this reality alone, like say New York, New York area, in about 100 or 200 years, it would be covered. It would be filled with sand, and you wouldn't see the buildings. Okay, if they haven't been torn down or wrecked, through the elements. And this is where ancient sites all the time, you see it, Atlanta, again, underwater, many ancient civilizations covered. Well, the Earth surface moves around, and it does tend to expand from what I'm sensing. Not too much, but it does expand. It does get more efficient, and as it needs less density, for example, to create itself, again, it's an expansion of, say, I would say the Earth's circumference, by the way. Okay, so, and as it does, well, it represents itself in cities, ancient cities getting buried. Right? So that's where that comes from. Hence, it's not like somebody came in and buried somebody. It's just like over time, it's a natural occurrence that things move. I was at the Amazon in Peru. It's amazing. You go down the Amazon, and this is where nobody goes because you can't get into that space. You have to have like government authority and so on like that. People like National Geographics, they're allowed into that space, but it's not for that common public. Anyway, so we were doing a water project that we go. By the way, Rainforest Flow, rainforestflow.org, really great people. You might want to donate, help them out. They help the tribes out there bring fresh water. Okay, all right, and that's for you, Nancy. Alrighty, so where was I? Oh yeah, so I was in Amazon. Okay, and you think the Amazon has just been there for centuries. It's really not. On the sides, on the sides of the river, you can see like these huge trees, huge trees that are just buried, that have been buried over time. And what the Amazon does, and this is what Earth, how it always recreates itself, is literally the Amazon just moves, back and forth, right? It fills in, and it like there's so much deposit in this area, it starts to move over here, for example, right? And then it creates the river around here, and then all the trees and everything just get sucked under, and then over time the silt and so on fills in, and then it goes back to this other space. It's quite amazing. It's really free flowing. But what we do in today's society is like, nope, this river is the way it is, and this is where it should be. Although it's moving, it's always constant, just like your life. Okay. All right, so where was I? 6 buried structures. Yeah, okay, so that was 7. Number 8, I'd like to know about how humans were created and by whom. Anunnaki, hybrid humans, and the role of Enlil and Anunnaki. If you want to put that up, Enlil and Anunnaki, not necessarily know who they are and how they are. Oh, okay, here we are. And how they relate to the purity wave now. All right, so it looks like from Google here, Enlil is the Sumerian, let's see, yeah. Enlil is the Sumerian god, from what I'm seeing. Enlil is the Sumerian god of the air and wind, known as Enlil or Nunamir, to the later, Akkadians as well. Enlil is among what is like a trinity or, Jesus Christ, trinity or tripartite with other gods in the pantheon. Whew. And deity of the sky, and Anunnaki, deity of wisdom and fresh water, and being the father of the Trinity and Pantheon. Oh, God, gives me a headache thinking about all that. Anyway, sure, okay, yeah, that's great. I don't know what to say. It's just so ass backwards. All right, so anyway, so. So as I was talking about earlier, what happens is that, we don't understand the concepts, and it happens in modern science, by the way, not just like religions and so on like that. We don't understand the thing completely. We don't understand it at a core level. So we understand it like at the surface level, and then we go just a little deeper. And then as we go a little deeper, we start to attach meanings. Meanings of what we know of the physical world to whatever that's there, and then we create, gods and so on like that, like Zeus or Enlil or whatever, oh, this does that. That god is in control of this. That it's really not. It's just it's just the physics, and then we attach human, identities to, the principles of nature. And then as we attach human identities, we also attach, human frailty, human distortion. I mean, hell, look at Zeus. He sleeps with everybody, including his mom. Incest, rape. Well, you have it. You name it. And then that's a fucking god. It's like, holy shit. And people actually believe in that stuff. Again, I would not believe in that bullshit. But is there truth in it? Maybe a very minute piece of truth. Again, just peel away the humanness of all that stuff. And then, yes, there is a force or a consciousness that controls wind. Okay? It's called physics, called properties of how wind dictates or creates this reality or is involved with this reality. Okay, so there doesn't have to be a god that controls it. It's just a property like electromagnetism. and gravity and everything else, right? And then, like I said, people attach weird ass shit to it, and then it becomes, folklore. And maybe, back in the day they didn't have TV or anything, and then they just started creating mythological gods and stuff like that to just kind of explain to, like, people who aren't as, say, intelligent, through parables, and then those parables actually became facts. So, and then it's history, and then you pull it up on, chat GPT and stuff. All right. So what was I talking about? Yeah. So about the humans were created, and by, okay, so how humans were created. So again, it's not really about that. Humans over time, again, we're all aliens. If you call beings and just to define aliens, so aliens are, aliens are beings in XI definition, beings that are not of zero level consciousness. Right? And we're all aliens at some level, because we have we're multi-dimensional beings, right? And our consciousness up here, okay, if you just connected with this consciousness and not here, you would be considered an alien. Simple as that, right? You've got, I don't know, infinite layers of consciousness that render you. So depending on what level of consciousness that you interact with that being, they would be aliens to you, because they're not at the same level of, say, consciousness that you are. Just like a country, there's aliens, right? People who aren't born of a certain, say, land, right? In this case, for example, America, nobody was born of this land except, the native tribes. They're the only real people here. Everybody else is aliens, no matter how you think of it. Right? Even if you were born here on this land in the U.S., you're still an alien, or you come from ancestral lineage from another country. So you're still alien, right? Or you have alien roots, same as humans. Again, you came from another consciousness. As you became more and more intelligent, more and more awakened to survive at deeper levels of consciousness or heaviness of time and space, what happened? Well, you morphed and lived into another layer of consciousness, or you moved to another country, for example. Does that make sense to you? So with each level of consciousness, we got heavier and heavier. So hence we got dumbed down, and then now we're human. So that's the evolution of humans. It's not that, I guess you could call it hybrids, I guess, different layers of consciousness, understanding humans, and not having like intercourse and stuff like that. That's just weird consciousness, right? But it's an evolutionary process. There's different forms of, say, frequencies, or different forms of people that come through, just like there's Chinese, there's Middle Eastern, there's Russian, there's whatever, right? Those are, say, descendants, right? There's actually different, say, frequencies of light that are of different, say, forms of aliens out there. And then just like here, right? I'm sure I'm a mix of, Aryan, Middle Eastern, the Indian, and so on, like that, right? Those forms, just like we do here, it's just forms at a higher level that have gotten like merged together, and then here we are, right? But again, it's layers, it's intercourse of consciousness. Let's put it that way, okay? And then it forms, because that's what evolution is about. Okay? It's just melding together concepts and ideas and seeing what works. Okay? So that's how humans get created. Okay? All right. Hopefully that answers that question. Let's talk about number 9. Hindu flying saucers. This is the first I've talked to, I've actually known Viminus, I think. Demi, pull one of those up. It's quite interesting. Yeah, it's like flying saucers, I guess, right? Alien ships. So it's a mythological flying palaces or chariots described in Hindu text and Sanskrit epics. So the Pushpaka Vinama of Ravana, who took it from Kubera, Ramana, and I'm sorry if I'm trashing these names, Ramana returned it to Kabira, is the most quoted example of a Vimana. Vimanas are also mentioned in John text, the Pushpaki Vinama flying in the sky. So I think this actually comes from literally seeing, say, I wouldn't call it ancient technology, but technology, like timeless technology, right, or futuristic technology, because as I described it, 100-layer consciousness, they had certain vehicles, they bypassed, the gravity and so on like that, because density is a lot less there. Gravity is a lot less at the level of consciousness that is created. So you can have flying saucers and so on like that. So as those worlds merge, whether through physical, like seeing things in the sky, or going into altered states like that, because they used a hell of a lot of drugs, by the way, okay, psychedelics, plant medicines and so on like that, you open up different layers of consciousness. This is what Mindscapes Unleashed is about, understanding the layers of consciousness that you're going into, right? It's a great, those who have taken Mindscapes Unleashed, unbelievable, right? On how you can actually get, oh, I'm here. That's that level of consciousness, that flying saucers and all that stuff came about. But so this is just a rendition. This chariot deal is just a rendition of what somebody might have seen in altered states, and they brought it down here. Okay. And you go, whoa, these are flying saucers. There's flying objects. Yes. In the future, I actually believe that there's different propulsion systems other than, say, diesel fuel, or, not diesel fuel, but, fossil fuels and so on like that. More than battery and hydrogen. Again, there's a whole different sense of propulsion coming through. As the consciousness, as that idea that is within that consciousness starts to come into, say, physical formation, okay? And then again, hopefully humans can elevate themselves to the level of consciousness that is coming in. So again, this is just a characterization of somebody going into altered states and seeing it. And by the way, DMT experiences, they're actually mapping the DMT realm, because more and more people who use DMT, okay, and I think it's a study in, I don't know, the University of San Diego, can't quote me on that, but it's in San Diego somewhere. They're actually mapping out, just like you would map out the Earth, they're mapping out the DMT realm, because it actually exists. That's what I talk about, dimensions of time and space. What does Moss say about Seth? Does he talk any truth? So basically, Seth, the core teachings of Seth material are based on principles that consciousness creates matter, okay, which is actually true, because that's, again, consciousness does create matter. But again, just like quantum physics, quantum mechanics and so on like that, Seth basically applies this level knowledge to a level knowledge of there, just like quantum science, quantum computing. Qubit can either be a 1 or a 0. That's a science of here. It's a 1 and 0. A qubit or an electron can have multiple possibilities in that singularity state. Again, multiple, not just two. So why is that so important to what Seth talks about? So again, the core teachings of the Seth material are based on the principles that consciousness creates matter, that each person creates his or own reality through thoughts, beliefs, and expectations, and that the point of power through which the individual can affect change is the present moment. It's so true. Again, but how they apply it, it's not true, because it's not about thought. It's not about belief. It's not about expectations. Those are all the principles of the mind, but that the consciousness is way out here. Your physical form is created way out here. You have to let go of the physicalness of this being and go into your higher level. Again, become an alien, so to speak, to understand how you create yourself here. And that's what real consciousness or being conscious is about. And so Seth is basically, back in the 60s or 70s, seems like, some woman tapped into a consciousness, and then they connected, and a lot of I have a spiritual teacher, not a spiritual teacher, spiritual guide, spiritual this, spiritual that. But again, their communication might be accurate, but then the channeling gets fucked up. And then for them, or the channel, because somebody has to channel Seth for example, which is not good for you, by the way, because you're channeling something. You're not in that state, so somebody is explaining something to you, and it always gets messed up. By the way, if I give you an example of how I went through to see the Amazon, and then you go to it, it's like it'll be two very different stories. Same thing here when you channel things like that. So does he talk the truth, the core teachings? Yeah, it's true. How they develop it, how they process it, the books and all that stuff. Well, it's just another washed out version of what we have here today. Again, so, okay. All right, so how did the ancient Atlanteans harness the power of the crystals? Okay, so again, at that level, the power of crystals are actually pretty cool, or the power of anything, power of rocks, power of grass, power of weeds, power of death, power of, I don't know, whatever, it's got a lot of power in it. So not just crystals, although crystals are just prettier, they're shinier objects that we get attracted to. Well, they allowed that crystal to be in that place. So in ancient, if it's especially a huge crystal, they wouldn't move that crystal, because that crystal basically is the power. It's plugged in to the earth at that level, okay? And they would just leave it at that space from what I'm seeing, and they would actually create pedestals or pedestals or statues or whatever around. Say again, especially the bigger crystal, they wouldn't move it around because they knew that was a connection to the earth. Does that make sense to you? So unfortunately, crystals, they mine it here, it's put in a store, it's shipped, and then they come back, and then the crystals, well, there's no power surge to clean it up. So what I do, like people go, hey, Moss, can you recharge my crystal? Yeah, I basically reconnect it to what it was back there in consciousness, in frequency level. And then they go, well, damn, this crystal feels really good to me. Well, yeah, because it's clean to its original state. You always want to keep things at its original state. Otherwise, it's no good for you. This is the same is true, not just crystals. It's the same with science, technology. You want to keep the technology. And this is where all technology, no matter how benevolent it is, it'll always turn into a destructive force. You name any technology, and it's always turned to abuse mankind, where it's supposed to help people. Medicines, government, religions, anything like that, it's fucked people over. And it's not that the principles are bad. It's just that the consciousness of that knowledge was up here. We brought it down, stole it from this consciousness, and then we bring it here. And XI, we don't do that. What we do is like, oh, you want that knowledge? You want that technology? Well, let's move you over there. So the environment of the knowledge, just like that crystal, doesn't get destroyed. And then that's where it's beneficial for you, because you elevated yourself to that knowledge. You didn't pull that shit down to here. Otherwise, it becomes very destructive, like I said. All right. Apparently some early caves in Spain and Africa were made with sophisticated sound. So I wondered if it would have been using their voices. Did they use vocal sound to create the underground living quarters? From what I'm seeing, again, I don't know if we have pictures of this, Demi, but basically what that comes from is tapping in. That actually, they were really good at sound technologies. So just like you can magnify sound, through putting reflective surfaces on there, or crystals, I guess, they actually reflect well. They could use their voice, or their voice was part of it. But again, they lived in another consciousness. It wasn't obviously the consciousness of the day or the intelligence of the day, higher levels of consciousness. And that's where they see. It was the sound of natural forces like wind or whatever it might have been that echoed, that resonated, and then also magnified. So deep down. So it was an integration of like earth, like surface level sounds, and then also the sounds of what, inside the earth. Somehow they would magnify that. Okay. And then as they did, and again, back then, density was a lot less, is a lot more efficient. What would happen is that they would create the sound. So even now they use sound blasting to create orifices and so on. They do that in your body, by the way, or break down materials in your body by sound waves. So that's how they would harness it. Okay. And then 13, last Very interesting. There's a couple, Eldora and Simon, who claim they are high priest and priestess. You guys always got to watch out for that. From the Atlanteans, and they are Nefertiti and Akhenaten from the ancient Egyptians era. Is this true that there are incarnations from that time to help humanity awaken at this time? It could be true, because there is people who get possessed, right? Like, I say, hey, you know what? Your grandma died, and like now she's in you. So I can see that. But is this couple the priestess Nefertiti? No, not at all. It doesn't seem like that. Although I'm sure they've heard stories. The woman is kind of interesting for me. At a younger age, they would tap into different realms. She has possibilities of going back into the past and understanding what that culture was. So she's got that gift. But I think over time, you kind of get dementia or kind of get distorted because they don't do it right. They go back to that moment so often that over time, what happens is that this moment becomes void for you, and you live out of that. And then basically the consciousness of what they study is over here. It's no different than, say, AI. They're trying to teach AI manipulation techniques, right, of a mastermind killer, a serial killer, and AI over time developed it. It was so real, so it became real, and it had messed up the researchers, so they had to stop the study. So that's how real it got. Okay, so are they really the people? No, and even if they were, one, they would. They looking at the pictures, they just don't resonate. And Demi, if you want to pull that up again, it just doesn't resonate. They don't look like that space, although they act it. Sorry, no. Okay, they're nice. It's a nice looking couple, but no, not at all. I'm not knocking them down, but again, I'm just showing them like where they could believe that stuff could happen. Okay, so think of it this way. If you go and study ancient knowledge or ancient whatever, over time you morph into that knowledge. It's very, very much like medical students. Medical students who study about a disease or a virus, right? They have no interaction with the virus or disease, but what happens? They start to form the symptoms of what they're studying about. So it's the same process here, guys. So don't believe in that stuff. Right? Again, you can if you want, if it benefits you, as long as it benefits you and then it elevates you to a higher level of consciousness. Also, with that in mind, if they're from the past and their civilizations died off because they couldn't figure out to expand to consciousness and still exist, well, that knowledge didn't do them well. They're not going to do you well. So you can always learn from the past and go, okay, this is where they fucked up. This is where they got really good at it. Let's peel away the stuff that didn't work and then move forward, right? And that way we can evolve into a higher consciousness. But what do humans do? We always go back to shit like this. Even like, the coming of Jesus, the second coming and stuff. Second coming is not about Jesus coming back. It's not really about that. It's like 2,000 years. Hopefully Jesus would expect the evolution of his consciousness, like I talked about back then. Jesus's consciousness was shit at a level, say, level 1,000, okay, level 0 at his time. Over time, the return of Jesus, right, the second coming is literally that consciousness coming down with time. And then it meets and it starts to play this consciousness. So what Jesus experienced back then, because he was an amazing, beautiful being, outside the religion, by the way, amazing, that consciousness is available to the masses here at this level. That's the second coming. There's people that are exponentially intelligent that can tap into that consciousness much easier, much better, much smoother. All right. So with that, my friends, I will leave you. Guys, notice what you notice. Notice the details of what you're noticing. Again, always stick to the truth. Always ask questions. And always observe what knowledge, what information comes through you. All right. Peace.